Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. And with me always is my great dear friend and producer, and thank God he does all the hard work and the heavy lifting for me, Dan the Man, in the studio today, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good out there today.
Thank you. We are coming strong on 4th of July pretty soon here, and happy birthday, America. And I hope you get a chance to be with family and to maybe have some hamburgers, hot dogs on the grill, a little ice cream, some French fries, whatever is an American thing, and just enjoy your freedom and have a great holiday for yourself. It's on a Thursday, and luckily I have a Friday off right after that this year, so I'm going to be taking a stretch away from the old mental health bastion at the mental health hospital I deal with every day. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time, I am a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. I've got over 22 years of experience, somewhere around there. And I'm also 40 years sober. I got sober at 22, not age 14. Thank you for the compliment. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in an alcoholic family. This disease, alcoholism, addiction, compulsive behaviors, insanity, it's been around me since I was in the womb. And I know it pretty well. I'm hoping that I've paid my due in this life with this particular aspect of shining up my diamond so that in the next one I can have a different experience. Because I've certainly have had alcoholism all around me and still do to this day with my profession and all my friends. So we hope to help you, but this is not just about alcohol and drugs in this podcast. This is about recovery in general from anything that is holding you back from being happy, fulfilled, or as we say in the program, happy, joyous, and free, or, just getting on path with what you want to accomplish with your life. And there's so many dead souls out there. If you go to the airport or go to the gas station and just look at people and see that they're just kind of dead in the eyes and going through the motions, and they don't like their job and they're not satisfied at home, and somebody told them you should get a job and get a family and get a house and you'll be happy, and they're not happy, but they have all this stuff. And we're chasing happiness on the outside, and recovery is all about, I got to go inward. It's all about the inside. So welcome. We are glad you're here, and we hope we can be of service to you. This podcast will be especially useful if you have anyone in your life who is struggling with alcohol and drugs or any other form of addiction, be it food, gambling, cell phone technology, sex, whatever they might be struggling with. It's an insanity that will drive you to an early grave just from being around it. Bill Wilson in the Big Book said a child that lives without an alcoholic will end up neurotic. And if you want to know what neurotic means, I always picture an old Woody Allen movie if he's walking down the street and talking to himself and worrying about and having anxiety attacks about everything that's going wrong. That's what neurotic, and that's what happens to a poor child. So it destroys families, and we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to give you some clues about what are some of the best approaches for you to maybe help a loved one. And mostly, we're going to talk about surviving this yourself. When you have addiction in the room, and I hope you'll take this from the words of an expert, it is every man, woman, and child for themselves. And you have got to save your own ass before you can help anybody else. And this disease will take you down. It will burn and completely raise the earth to just get what it wants. And people are the collateral damage. So you're going to learn a lot about that today, about taking care of you. So the podcast is formulated into 3 sections where we have a edumacation, which will be the first part about this issue of helping our loved ones. And then we're going to have a little ramble back and forth with me and Dan the Man, get a little different opinion, take on it from his experience. And then we'll have questions, which we do every week for you guys. We have 2 great questions today at the end of the podcast. Please send your questions to iam12recovery@gmail.com. That's iam12, those 4 letters or digits, and then the word recovery @gmail. And we will answer anything for free. So you can have, if you need some experience, strength, and hope with any issue you have in your life, please send it to us, and we are happy to share with that anonymously. You will not be identified on the podcast. Alrighty, let's get right to the topic today. So you will hear people throw out the term that addiction is a family illness. And I don't think that's very thorough to explain what's happening. So I prefer to call it, as a therapist, a family system disorder, a family system illness. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you have a family, it is literally like a working piece of machinery or a working system. And every part of that system has to do their part to keep the whole intact and to keep it working in a constructive, going forward, productive, positive manner, okay? And so, the children might have their responsibilities of doing their chores and going to school and getting good grades and all that. And then mom or dad is the bacon winner and comes home, brings home the bacon and gets the, support with the financially. And then maybe the other parent works, maybe they don't, but they're helping to support in their way. And we do chores and we do the tasks that all keep the family on a level field and going forward and working. It has to work. And to work, all parts of that system have to be operating ideally at optimum condition. But you throw alcoholism and addiction or any other compulsory behavior into the mix, and suddenly that system is going to be thrown out of whack. The person who is afflicted by the addiction will not be able to keep up with their responsibilities. So if you have a piece of machinery in a factory and that little widget or screw or bolt or whatever gets out of place, it's going to just get all cattywampus. It's not going to be performing, and that's a southern term we use, cattywampus. It's just going to be out of check. It's not going to be able to operate at the same level of optimum efficiency that it used to. And so what happens? The rest of the people in the system have to step up to balance the disorder, okay? So if mom or dad is not bringing home the money and we're going to be out on the streets, maybe one of my patients, and this is very common for them, might have to go to work early at a young age to help support the fact that dad's addiction has taken them out of the picture. If the child gets sick and the parent is completely obsessed by that child's addiction and focused on that, then maybe they're not performing as well at work. And that can cause two disorders in the system. And you create enough stress on that entire operating, functioning system, and you're going to get this thing called a dysfunctional family system. And that is exactly what it stands for. Dysfunctional. It used to be functional and operating at optimal condition, and now it's operating at a subpar, less than ideal condition. Okay? And addiction just decimates that in a family. I know that well from growing up in my own family. The insecurity of not knowing when the next shoe was going to drop. The fear of when you're going to get that phone call that dad's been in a wreck or he's lost another job or mom or whoever's the breadwinner. And just that anxious fear, PTSD effect. It will cause a person to have a nervous breakdown that is not afflicted by the addiction. The people around are made sick. And this is the only illness I know that does this. Cancer will stress people. Any other major critical acute illness, if you're the caregiver, is going to take you to your limits and back. At times you might want to slap your patient, your mother, whoever you're trying to help, because it can be very stressful. I've got a good friend of mine who was having to change their father's diapers and clean them up, and that's tough for a child to deal with that. But even that does not even compare to the complete chaos and upheaval, or as Bill Wilson so aptly calls it in the big book, he says we are the tornado through the lives of other people. And it just decimates everything in its path. We're in the Midwest, we know tornadoes well. You go on the aerial footage, it's just gone. Used to be a house, used to be a gas station, just splinters on the ground. That's what addiction does in family systems. So, first thing I need you to hear, you hear this a lot on here, not your fault. That is the number one impediment that I find especially parents will put themselves through, to say, well, maybe if I had done something different, or maybe if I had been a better parent, or I should have been there for them at this time, or maybe it's my fault that they're that way. That's not really helpful right now. That has nothing to do with the fact that we have somebody who's afflicted and ill and we're not treating their disease. We are doing that self-inventory, which is taking energy away from just dealing with the problem. So you've got to hear that it is not your fault, it is not your fault, it is not your fault, and I can prove it. This is a genetically driven illness that runs in families from generations to generations. It's invariably never happens in my group that I don't ask my patients, what's your family, who else is afflicted, and they've got 2 or 3 that they know about, and the rest nobody's told them. And those that say they don't, they're either in denial, they don't want to even be in my group in the first place, they're not going to tell me nothing, or nobody's told them because it's a secret disease. This is the only disease we hold in such shame and guilt, and maybe it's my fault crap, that the more you keep it secret, the more it grows. It's just like mold in your basement. If it's in the dark and you ignore it, it's going to take over your house. Okay? Recovery is shining that light on and saying, no, this is what's going on. This is the truth. This is what's real. But in a family system with addiction, you've got to keep secrets and you've got to lie. And that feeds to the children. What is that a message for 3 or 4-year-old to teach them to lie about what mom or dad was doing last night? But they do. Because it's a source of embarrassment, a source of shame, and that loyalty. The family outside, nobody must ever know. Nobody must ever know the family's business. I was raised strongly. Put on that image, smile, act like everything's okay, and nobody needs to know our business, what's going on behind closed doors. So when I say it's not their fault and they have this genetically inherited predisposition, guess what happened? We put them in an environment where they're now in the most addicted country on earth ever that has existed in the history of mankind. That is irrefutable. We have more ways to F you up in America today than we've ever had in the entire history of mankind. And it's available everywhere. Whether you want to go down to your vape store or go to your McDonald's, we have so many dopamine sources. And all of this is creating that environment of, well, you have a problem, get a fix. Oh, if you feel bad, that's not right. You should feel good. And I totally disagree with that philosophy as a therapist. Anxiety, depression, other negative feelings serve a purpose. They're signals to get your attention, to make a change, or to look at it and address it. But what am I doing? I'm treating my symptoms. I'm just treating my symptoms. I'm not getting to the root causes. So again, we live in this system. So what are the chances that even if I coach my little daughter, my son, be careful. You know, your grandfather was a drunk and you don't want to fall into that. What are the chances they're going to fall into taking a beer with their friends in high school? You tell me. What are the odds of that in 2024? Pretty damn high. Would you not agree? So what happens is, as they take that first one, if they have this genetic predisposition, dominoes get pushed over. It's all these dominoes that start going. And as progression happens, it really picks up speed on a person. And they end up doing things they never thought they would do with their progression. And so you can't avoid it. At some point in their life, they were going to try something, even if it was caffeine at a Starbucks. And their brain, being different, was going to react and go ding, 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 ding. I like that. Talk to any addict alcoholic when the first time they used, and they will tell you it was a revelatory, transformative, almost holy experience. For me, it was holy. I thought I had found God. It was the answer to everything I felt inside. I never felt part of life, just like Bill Wilson. I was part of life at last. Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA, he wrote that on page 2 of the big book. That was the moment when I used and I got the first real effects. It worked, and it worked better than anything. So as human beings, if it works, I'm going to do it again. Why would I not? And I have all that peer pressure around me. Everybody's first step I hear. Again, I'm telling you all this to clear your guilt and shame agenda that you caused what was wrong with your loved one. The peer pressure that I hear in people's stories that, oh, well, I wanted to be part of the cool crowd. I wanted to be part of the older people I was hanging with. And they, you know, I had to smoke because they were doing it. And I didn't really want to do it, but I did it. And ding, 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 their genetics took over. One of our really great friends, great speaker, Bob Earl, who's no longer with us, used to say, I wanted to fit in so bad that in 5th grade, if they had come to me and said, hey, we're going to go kill the social studies teacher, come with us, I would have said, okay, just so I could be part of the group. That's what teenagers are dealing with, right? Remember what it's like to be a teenager and desperately want to have friends and fit in? So they're going to try something. And when they try something, biology takes over. This is not parental influence. This is not immoral church influence. This isn't right or wrong. This is just the normal course of events. And their brain is reacting differently than a normal person would react to the substance. It's going to start that phenomenon of craving, develops over time, which is going to cause them to seek out more and more and more if they're one of us. So again, I'm telling you that to relieve yourself. There's nothing you could have done to change that. I get many patients in my group who are tore up about a friend of theirs who got overdosed or died. And they say, but I introduced them to it. And I said, no, you didn't. Yeah, but I did. I gave them the first. No, you didn't. Did you force them? Did you sit on their chest? Did you make them, hammer them to make them use? No, I just said, do you want to do, you know? And they did it. Oh, so they're an adult. They chose for themselves. They made their own decision. And if it hadn't been you, if they made that decision there, they probably would have made it with somebody else. But they will carry that guilt. And I think it's just I don't know, it almost feels like they're trying to plan a relapse, if you want my honest opinion, that they can't let it go. It's not your fault. Stop inserting yourself into someone else's journey. That's their journey. And that's something you're going to hear a lot if you go to Al-Anon, which I'll suggest later. They're going to teach you to set those boundaries. That is their stuff, not yours. It's not your fault. So I'm going to throw at you the number one thing that Al-Anon talks about. And I love it because it's such an easy phrase to remember. And I'll repeat it several times today. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. And you cannot cure it. I will repeat. You didn't cause it. You cannot control it. And you cannot cure it. And if you're a loved one of an addict or an alcoholic, you will fall into every one of these traps before you learn your lesson. That is normal. Do not beat up on yourself for making mistakes. At first, like I said, did you cause it? Oh my God, did I do something wrong? Maybe if I'd been there more. Or maybe if I'd been a better friend. Or what the hell? Is it my fault? That's the cause part. You can't control it. You're going to try. You're going to try and protect them from it. There's a line in the big book that says, no scheme which aims to protect the man from temptation has ever worked. And yet wives and husbands, we're going to clear out the house, and I'm going to make you stay home, and we're going to make sure you don't go to the bar. Good luck. So you're going to fall into that trap of trying to control it and find out that doesn't work because you're powerless over it just as much as they're powerless over it, and you cannot cure it. This is a hard one for partners. This idea that some stranger is going to come in and fix my husband or my wife, and I've been working with them for years. Yeah, and it's not worked with you, has it? Yeah, but still, I have the right. It should be me who fixes them. It's a big resentment. It's a huge resentment that we hear from our people who come in the program and say, well, they're pissed because it wasn't them that got me well. Well, it can't be. You need professionals, and you need people who have experience with the issue. Ideally, other alcoholics or addicts. That's the way this deal works. So I'm going to say it again. You didn't cause it. You cannot control it. And you cannot cure it. Okay? All right. I had to write a lot of cards for this because it's such a complex illness, and I want to make sure I cover every aspect of this for you today. I'm trying to do my work for you. All right. So when we're talking about the illness, there's a lot of approaches that people use to treat it. And there's only one that we know works, but I'm telling you, even in 2024, the persistence of these approaches, even among professionals, and I'll hear psychiatrists do some of this, and I'm like, whoa, dude, that doesn't really work. For instance, this is not a weakness. This is not a willpower issue. And I still heard a patient in my group today say, I still think it's a willpower thing. And I said, well, you have a lot to learn about this illness. I keep telling you it's a brain disorder that has run away from you. How are you going to control that? And the way I explained it today is, how are you going to control not scratching an itch? I want anybody in this room that doesn't think willpower or thinks willpower is the answer, you go a whole day and use your willpower not to scratch an itch whenever you have it and see how hard that is for a whole day. Or does your hand just automatically go and scratch it and you're like, oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. We also say as a joke in the program, if you think you're not powerless, try to control your diarrhea. There are things in life we cannot control, and I'll explain a little bit of that brain science in a second, but a lot of that is in our first episode. So it's not a weakness. It's not a lack of willpower. A lot of my parents will come in and say, well, I just think she needs to get a job. She needs to pull her shit together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, sir, she could do that, but she's not going to recover from this fatal disease. That's not treating her disease. That's just treating circumstances. Well, I think they're hanging out with the wrong people. If they weren't hanging out with those people, they wouldn't be. Well, I hate to tell you, but if they're one of us, it doesn't matter who they're hanging with. And I'm sure Dan will back that up later. Whoever I'm hanging with don't matter. I'm going to found it, and I would have stayed with it because why? What did I teach you? It works. If I have nothing else on this planet to quiet my disease, right? Dis-ease inside, I'm going to use it. Why wouldn't I? It's a miracle cure. I take this and I feel better. It's also not a sin or a moral failing, and I'm astonished that people will still use phrases like, well, I think the devil's gotten in her, is what I think. And I'm like, oh, my Lord. Would you say that about someone's cancer? Now, I know some fanatics might. Oh, you just need to pray and your cancer will be gone. Well, okay, great. I hope you still do your medical treatments. You can pray. There's nothing wrong with that, but I hope you still go to the doctor and go to the professionals. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a biosocial, spiritual, physical problem. This is real. This is all aspects of their being has been corrupted by this illness. And it's essentially hijacked the brain. As I said in the first episode, we've got these natural drives that have helped us to survive on this planet, they are fierce. They rule everything. We would not be here if they did not. Your hungers, your reward system, your pleasure response, and your the least effort put forward to get that. Because I want to conserve my energy. If y'all watch the show Naked and Afraid, they will often talk about that. The real survivalists about, well, we could go to the lake to try and get some food, but the chances we'll get some aren't so good. So how many calories we're going to expend to get the food versus what's the win from getting that food? Are we just chasing our tail by replenishing the calories we spent? And so that's what's going on in our brain all day long is how can I get that reward, stay alive, get what I need, but do the least effort to have to get it. And drugs fall right into that because they're addictive. This is the major thing I think most people miss. They're designed to hook you. They create a response of craving, just like coffee. I'm fairly addicted to coffee to the point where if I stopped, I'd get a headache the next day or the next 2 days, right? So, and some of these drugs like fentanyl, they're off the graph with that. So please respect that. Not a weakness. A lack of willpower. Don't lecture them about that crap. Don't say you just need to go to church. None of that is helpful. I'm sorry to tell you. It will not get them well. Now, later, that aid tool, if they want to re-engage with their own faith, great. That can be used. But that is not the intervention that's going to stop them from going to hell and dying. Okay? But again, not your fault. You didn't cause it. Can't cure it. So it's not your job to fix them. So let's talk about this disease when it's in action, because you need to know what you're dealing with. I coach any of the parents or friends who are trying to help one of their loved ones what they're dealing with, and I remind them you are not dealing with your daughter. You're dealing with the disease. And I encourage my patients when they're describing their partner's behaviors, and I'll say, are they an alcoholic or an addict? I want to hear them say those words. And when they say yes, I say, then you know what you're dealing with. Think about yourself and your behaviors as an addict. How crazy were you? How illogical and irrational were you in your moves and your actions? That's what you're dealing with. You've got a beast in your house called addiction. This is no longer your daughter. This is no longer your son. And as you go up against that beast with that angle, and honey, I love you so much, and why won't you stop? And you're bawling, and you're trying to manipulate and think of a way to tell them just right that that's going to change their ways. It's just killing you. My good friend Dan has somebody in their life that's struggling with that, and he could see that in them, that it was literally decimating them emotionally and stealing all their energy and their joy. And they're like, but that's all I know what to do, so I'm going to keep using the same tactic even though it's not working. Are they sober yet? No, it's not working. On the willpower issue, by the way, let me back up on this because I had the best experience with this when I had this big old burly father come in one time for his daughter. And he was pissed because it'd been 10, 16, I don't know, it'd been a long time that she'd been dealing with opiate addiction. And, he goes, I keep telling her she has no willpower and she needs to pull her stuff together and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, sir, just take a breath, pause for a second, and don't punch me when I tell you this. But let me ask you a question. As you've been telling her all this and all that effort you're putting forth to try and get her to stop, has it worked? Well, of course it hasn't worked. She's here. She's not working. I said, okay, wait a minute. Just slow down. Just relax. It's okay. Has it worked to change her, and is it working to get her to stop? No, it's not working at all. Okay, so you're talking to her about willpower, and you're going up against her will to try and get her to change, but she's not changing. So who do you think has more willpower in this equation? You or her? Her willpower to continue to use is beating your willpower to change her, is it not? He did not want to concede the point, but he had to see the logic in it. And I said, the reason I'm telling you that is if it was a willpower issue, addicts and alcoholics would have recovered a long time ago. We have ironclad, unbreakable wills. If you live with an addict or an alcoholic, excuse me, you know how frustrating it is to beat your head against that wall that will not budge. They will not budge. They're winning. So I tell my patients that's actually the opposite. Like we've learned about powerlessness. It's not about getting your control, but it's actually about admitting that you've lost control. And it's about admitting that my willpower is dangerous because I won't listen to what anybody else tells me to do. I won't take suggestions. I won't do it your way. I'm going to do it my way to the grave. Fuck y'all. If you're an addict or an alcoholic, you understand that thinking. Wherever it comes from, we're hardwired that way. You're never going to beat me on a question of will when I set my mind to something, right? So be careful about telling them they don't have willpower, because it's a false message. So, but I want to break down this beast you're up against. Again, I told you, when you're dealing with your daughter or your son, keep reminding you, oh, I'm fencing words with a master criminal. I am, even, to the point where you start beating yourself up that you should have known that they were using. Oh, my Lord, you are out of your league. Dan will back me up. We are the greatest master manipulators and self-deceiving plus deceiving of you. Artists of illusion. Look over here while I'm doing this, and oh, I'm doing great. And you will never see it if I've got anything to do with it. And the most common response we will hear is, you're an addict? No, not you. You can't be an alcoholic. Yeah, I was just hiding it really good, and you're an idiot because I fooled you. So that's not your fault too. How am I going to go up against a master chess player and beat him? How can I beat a master manipulator and liar and thief when I'm trying to come at him with honesty? You can't. We've got people in politics nowadays that just keep lying, and you can't argue with a lie because they believe it to be the truth. And that's kind of what you're up against with that delusion. They believe it to be the truth. Excuse me. I think I need to take a little drink of water for a second here. All right. So take that off of you when you're going up against the beast. And the disease, when they're in their cups, that's a line out of the big book, An Alcoholic in His Cups, when they're active, the disease has one goal: feed me. You need to hear that. Feed me. If you've seen that show, Little Shop of Horrors, it's an old movie where the plant gets bigger, and the more Morris feeds it bodies, the bigger it grows, and it keeps going, feed me, Morris, feed me. That is its only goal in life. It's almost like it's living on you like a parasite or a vampire, and it can't feed unless it gets you to take your body and walk to the dope house or walk to the liquor store. It has to be fed, and it will work you until it gets fed. So as you're telling this person, why would you do this to your kids? And this is just terrible. You're a good person and you have so much to offer. They're not hearing that. They can't hear that. This voice is just telling them, you got to attend to this. We have got to feed. And you know what it is? Try going without food for a week. You try that. Your body and your brain will literally force you to eat, because if you don't, you'll die. Your body or brain will bug the crap out of you to eat. And that will overrule every other thought or emotion in your body. So as you're giving all these sound arguments that you think are very persuasive because you read it in a book, they can't hear any of it. Feed me. Feed me. And while you're saying that, they're planning how they're getting out the back door to go to the dope house and steal your keys to get there. Trust me, I've been there. I've listened to lectures while I had my mom's credit card in my pocket, ready to take off and go get dope. Yeah, you're right. Oh, you're right. I'm going to get it. I'm going to do it. Thank you so much. I feel so much better. I'm out the door. That's what you're up against. Okay? And the disease, because of this feed me aspect, creates this extreme self-centeredness. Does that sound familiar? How many times have you said to your loved one, it's always about you? Why is everything about you? And you're so self-centered, you never think about anybody else. Again, not helpful, because that's the reality of what's happening. But hearing that ain't going to change it when you say that to them. But that extreme self-centeredness is driven again because my survival system is saying, if I don't replenish this, I will die. It's like oxygen, it's like water, it's like food. My brain has been corrupted and hijacked and now believes if I don't get that substance, I will actually perish. It's going to be bad. Ask any dope fiend, they know what I'm talking about. It's going to be real bad if I don't get my fix. All right? So we're up against that. Now, as we're talking to the disease, you want to attack the disease and not the patient. And this is a big mistake that a lot of loved ones make, in that they come at their loved one with all their character defects. As I just said, you're self-centered. You don't do your chores. You're not going to work. And they have this long list of all the things they're not doing. And it's not really helping to get the disease out of the way. We want to attack the disease and not the patient. And trust me, a lot of therapists make this mistake too. And it took me several years to grow in my methodology and my approach, that I wasn't coming off kind of harsh in my, you need to get this. It just doesn't work. And, why would you continue to pursue a way that works? Because we're passionate about it. And if you love them, you're hurt and you want to see them change and get better. But don't attack them. Attack the disease. And always refer to the fact that you have an illness. You're sick. Keep reinforcing that with them, because that's one of the hardest hurdles for an addict to internalize. And the reason they don't want to internalize that they're defective is because there's a lot of shame and guilt with that. Like, I'm wrong, I'm weak, there's something wrong with me. No. This is an actual medical condition. It's treatable, and it's not your fault. But we need to get you well to improve so you don't keep doing this stuff. So what I'm literally saying to you is, you got to be careful to depersonalize all of the crazy shit that they do. Now, this is another big trap I see loved ones fall into all the time. You're doing this to me, or you're doing this on purpose, or you're doing this because you just don't love me enough. Whew. It's going to get you nowhere. Depersonalize it. View it as them completing the neural circuit that says, I have to have the drugs. They didn't steal your card to hurt you. They stole your card to get the drugs. They didn't not show up last night because they wanted to intentionally ruin your sleep. They didn't show up last night because the phenomenon of craving kept them at the bar. They had to get more. And they didn't even think of it. Because of that self-centeredness, because of the feed me, they did not even think about you at home not getting sleep. But you will personalize it and say, you're treating your mother so bad, or you're doing this to me. Blah, blah, blah. It's not going to get you anywhere. Now, it's okay to share that with other people. If you need to vent and get those feelings out, I get it. I tell, we have nursing students that come in to observe my class because it's great for their training to be exposed to psych patients, because they're going to see a lot of them through the hospitals and other facilities they work in. And I tell them, I say, okay, first of all, you need to understand about addiction. If you feel at any time that you want to punch them in the face, that's a perfectly normal response. If you feel at any time you want to pull every last hair out on your head, that is a perfectly normal response. This is coming from a guy who has a lot of experience with this. However, just don't do it. Don't do it. You will lose your job. You'll get written up. It'll not be good. You'll lose customers. But it's okay to feel that way. And what I got to do something with those feelings. The joke I have at the treatment center with Dan is, I got slimed today. Like the guy, Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, and the ghost goes through and he's all slimy. I got slimed. I got to vent this to get it off me, or I got to take a shower to try and change my mood, because the negativity and the freaking cynicism and depression and all the stuff that goes along with addiction, it coats you. It gets on you. And we're going to shift into gears here in a second, but talk about we got to work on fixing you and treating you better and not worry about the addict so much. I'll explain in a second. But again, depersonalize it. They're not doing it to you on purpose. And by the way, depersonalize them as they continue to do shit while they're sober. Hard. Because you will come at them and say, well, you're a week sober. You should not be doing that. And if you will listen to our podcast on post-acute withdrawals, which is already posted, you will understand they're going to be out of their mind for at least 90 days. That's at least. But after that, they start to get less and less symptoms. But they're not in their right head. They're sick. They're corrupted. They're completely offline with their rational behavior. So when they continue to do weird stuff in sobriety, I will warn you about this number one relapse trigger that I hear in my group more than anything else. What do you think the number one relapse trigger is for addicts and alcoholics? You know what we say? We say people and places. True. People, places, and playthings or things, whatever we say in the groups, right? But you know what it really is? When a loved one accuses them of using and they're not using. Nothing will drive them to the liquor store faster than that out of resentment. Because I'm working so hard and I am trying to get this done and I'm trying to impress you and do the right thing and be a good parent, good partner, whatever it is, and you're going to dare accuse me that I'm using because I'm acting a little weird because of my post-acute withdrawals. I'll show you. And then they run right off and do it. Watch. You just watch. So if you want to run that past a friend to say, I think they were using last night, great, fine. Use your supports, but do not bring that to them. You can totally derail somebody's sobriety. I've not seen it never fail that they didn't relapse after that because it's insulting. And they're working so hard if they are doing right. Imagine how that would feel to them. So don't, again, we're not trying to attack the person. We're trying to attack the disease kind of, all right? All right, so what do we do? What do we do to try and change this for the person we love? What can we do that's constructive? Because I just went through a lot of things that are on the do not do list. And believe me, it was hard to sort these notes out because I was wondering what angle I wanted to take. So the last angle I'm going to present is about taking care of you. So hang in there for that because you really need to hear that above everything else. But we do have proven techniques that we know from 87 years, how many years it is of recovery now, that we know for a fact work, okay? We know what doesn't work and we know what does work. So one of the things we want to do, people and human nature, generally people do not change unless the suffering and the pain of staying the same way they are right now gets worse than the imagined suffering and pain that will accompany change. I'm going to repeat that. People generally do not change as long as the pain and suffering of staying the same isn't as bad as the pain and suffering they're imagined of what it's going to be like to be without drugs or to be sober, of changing. And this is true of all human nature. You know, we all are like, well, I'll do that tomorrow or I'll do that later because I'm worried about there's going to be new people I got to see at the meeting, or I got to go to the gym, it's going to hurt, or I got to go get that medical thing done, it's going to hurt. So we put it off, right? But then the pain gets so bad that I'm driven to the doctor, right? I actually had that in my life recently where I had an issue that it's like, all right, I think I should really talk to a professional, find out what's going on. And we're making progress. But that's just human nature. So your job, okay, around the addict or the alcoholic is to try and create an environment where it becomes unbearable and almost impossible to use. If you don't create that environment, you're kind of signing off on what they're doing, okay? Letting them, get away with the fact that they pass out on the floor and you're going to pick them up and put them in bed. That's a big no-no in Al-Anon and other groups I'll suggest to you where you can go for resources. But they will tell you, let them have their consequences. If you steal their consequences from them, they're not going to change because they don't see any reason to change. Let them sleep outside. I know you will pull them inside because you don't want to embarrass the neighbors. My stepfather was like that. He'd go pee his pants, pass out in the front yard. So my little brother and my mom would pull him back in the house. I get it. You might have to do that for your own sanity. But when you're doing that, you're eliminating their consequences. I get so frustrated with parents that as soon as their daughter or son gets arrested, they go bail them out. I'm like, oh, you just ruined it. Their higher power cornered them into a spot where they have to face themselves and deal with their shit, and you just went in there and saved them from it. Yeah, but I love them. I don't want to see my baby in jail. Yeah, you ruined their chances to get sober is what you did there. We in AA have this joke that, the wife calls, just to use an old example. The wife calls, and she's like, oh, terrible news. He got arrested. And we're like, yay. He said, oh, no, it's terrible. He's in jail, and he might have real charges. We're like, yay, good. And then she'll call, and then she'll say, oh, great news. He got a new job. We're moving to a new town. He got a big promotion. He's going to make a lot more money, and everything's going to be great. And we're like, oh, no, you're in trouble. Because why? The addiction is allowed to skate. You are giving it a free pass. No person changes without consequences. You need to hear that. You're the same way. Whether it's a health issue you've got, you're eating badly, you're not going to change until it gets bad enough. We're just built that way. We can tolerate a lot of pain and suffering until it's bad enough. But the problem is we have this one character in the mix. And if you want to identify yourself as this person, again, what's the key word? Not your fault. And don't blame yourself for this or beat up yourself for this. Or you might notice it's someone else in your family that's doing this. But we have this character called an enabler. And an enabler will undercut everything else the family is trying to do to get them sober. Now, there is a show on television called Intervention. It's been around forever. Perhaps you've seen it. And usually on most episodes, they will identify the one person in the family who's keeping them sick. And why? Because they're sliding them money under the table without anybody else knowing. They're providing them a place to stay when they need to experience their homelessness. And this is hard as hell when it's your daughter or son. You don't want your daughter or son to be on the streets. You don't want them to be in jail. But when you eliminate the consequences, you are approving the disease. You are telling them, I support you being sick. You need to hear that. We don't want to support them being sick. We want to support them getting well. And they will get mad at you when you take that stand. When you finally come down and say, look, honey, I love you. and I am always here for you. But I am no longer going to support you getting sick and dying. I don't support your disease, but I will support you. If you want to go to treatment, I'll give you a ride. If you want to go to treatment, I may even help pay for it. But I am not going to support you being sick anymore. The enabler can't see this. Now, in the episode I saw recently, there was a man who had a crippling bone disorder where he was going to die if he did not get this transplant. And the reason he did not go get this transplant was because he was so concerned about the addict and what was going to happen to them with him in the hospital that he was putting off his treatment, was going to die. Now, you're going to sit there and go, well, that's crazy. Who would do that? So common in a sick family system with addiction. I cannot tell you how common it is. It's a dysfunctional system. You're going to do things you never thought you would do before and not even be aware that you're doing it at the time you're doing it. It changes you. It literally changes your behaviors and the way you act. A wife who makes an excuse on the phone with a person's boss for why they're not at work that day because they think, well, if they lose their job, we don't have money. I get it. I totally would understand if somebody did that. I'd say, I respect your decision. But you're feeding the disease. You're making it okay for them to keep doing those behaviors. And an addict or an alcoholic is not going to change until the situation around them becomes either unbearable or impossible to keep using. Unbearable in that the pain of the consequences and costs outweigh the pleasure I'm getting from using, and impossible in that I just can't even afford it, or I'm homeless, or I don't know where to get it anymore. I don't have a car. Those things that the disease takes from them creates the conditions to create in recovery, chance of them recovering. And ultimately, please hear all this because it's a fatal illness. If we don't change our tactics, they're going to die from this. This last week, one of our good friends, Travis, in our home group, told another story that we hear too often, probably once a week, of a mother who drowned in her bathtub with her young children at home, and they found her. 3 little babies, 2, 3, 5, 6, however they were young, and they're wrecked, and the family is never going to recover from that. That's what's waiting. This disease always gets worse. So as you're using these tactics against the disease, not against the patient, you are providing them a chance to save their life and save the lives of those little babies. I always say this all the time. That should be priority number 1. Protect the children, protect the children, protect the children. And this fellow in the intervention episode was allowing the woman to see the children and destroy their lives with her chaos. She's literally shooting up while the baby, I call him a baby, he was 5 years old, is over here crying, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," like screaming at her. Blood dripping off her arm in front of the child. And this dude's allowing it to happen. Oblivious that he's hurting her. Until he goes to the intervention. And the intervention is, "What the fuck are you doing? You're helping her to die. Period." And you got to have that professional person in your life sometimes to get them to wake up. They become so sick. They become so part of the affliction that they're just don't know where they end and the affliction begins. They become part of the disease. I've seen this so many times. Enablers, codependents. It just happens. Again, not your fault. If you're there, you're going to be affected by that. So, I do want to put in a word for that at the end. We'll wait till that on that one. So, but let's keep moving on here. Again, nobody gets well without consequences, and you've got a way where you can create an environment around them where you're not going to tolerate that behavior. You can start with as simple as, well, if you're going to drink, you're not going to drink in the house. So if I'm relegating my partner to go drink in the garage, now that might not seem like much, but still, they're not allowed to just sit there in front of the kids and do it in front of the TV. They got to get up, walk outside in the cold, drink in the garage, and then come back in. Then maybe you can set that boundary and say, we're going to have a sober house at least. There's going to be nothing in the house. Now, they will probably hide something and sneak something in. But for the most part, you're causing a barrier, an obstacle for them to make it easy for them to continue to be sick. Again, they're not going to change until something changes that makes it more difficult to keep using. All right. So let's get to this main thing I want you to work on for yourself before you can go and try any of these techniques, and I'll add more if I can think of more. You've got to take care of you. the devastating toll to your physical health and your mental and spiritual health that will happen by just living in proximity to an addict. They will become your one obsession during the whole day. You can't help it. You'll be thinking about, what are they doing? What are they doing? And you feel like you need to catch them on something. You become a detective. I had an Al-Anon speaker come to my group one time to teach them about the family system, and she said that she was so sick with the codependency, she was like crawling through the carpet to see for remnants of drugs, and she found this thing that she thought was a leftover roach from a marijuana joint, so she decided to smoke it to see if it was real, and as she was smoking it, she saw that it was a bug. Crazy. She also told stories about getting in the van, her van at 2 o'clock in the morning with her pajamas on to go to the bad neighborhood to look for her daughter, save her life, because she's out in the streets. I said, honey, you do not need to be in that part of town at that night in your pajamas. That is totally not cool. That is not sane behavior. But you don't know that unless you have people to talk to. So priority number one is I got to start pulling some of those resources back that I've been throwing at the addict, and I need to keep them for myself. And I need to work on myself, okay? You cannot be of any help to your loved one if you are rattled, frazzled, serenity's gone, not calm. You're not going to help them at all. You're just feeding into this arguing back and forth, our little pattern that we do over and over, okay? So number one, take care of yourself. Number one, get your own help. Do not wait for them to be ready for change. So many codependents make that mistake that, well, if you get well, then I will start working on me. Or if you get well, then everything will be better and I'll be okay. That's a lie. You need to hear that. If you've been afflicted by this disease within a family, you are afflicted by this disease. You are either an adult child of an alcoholic from growing up with it, or you are a codependent, possibly an enabler, from just being in proximity to them. Now, what is that? That means if you do not address those issues that have been implanted in you against your will, not your fault, you will take all of that to your very next relationship. I've seen it. You will literally, they'll die. Let's say the disease gets them, they have a car crash, they die. You will go through mourning. You will come out of it. You will decide, well, maybe I'm ready for another relationship. You will take this stone and you will throw it at the nearest highway where there's about 50 cars going by at once. And if you're a codependent, you will pick the one car that has another drug addict or drunk in it. I've seen this 1,000 times. And suddenly you're back in the same cycle. If you grew up in a family with this and you have not treated your adult children of alcoholic issues, you will end up being a caregiver and a codependent and a control freak with somebody else's illness. Usually alcoholism and addiction, because that's what's familiar. We always gravitate to what's familiar. So when I'm begging you, and I'll get on bended knee if I got to help you, I'm begging you to get your own help. Get your own therapist. Go to Al-Anon. What is Al-Anon? Al-Anon is the most blessedly beautiful program in the damn world. Al-Anon is a place where they really focus on you and relationships and how can I better manage my health as I live with somebody who's sick. Okay? If you go to a meeting of Al-Anon going in there saying, well, teach me how to fix my drunk, they're not going to do that. You know what they're going to do? They're going to lovingly look at you and say, that's okay for now, honey. Tell us what's going on with you. How are you doing? And when was the last time, if you're living with an alcoholic who's self-centered and having to do feed me, that somebody really asked you how you were doing? Are you okay? And they will help you rebuild yourself to reclaim your own soul from the sickness. You've got to divorce yourself from all that. You get so enmeshed with somebody. If it's your child especially, it's going to occupy your whole day. That is not healthy. You have no control. Okay? So let me get my own help. And I'm going to tell you the beauty of this organization is that this is a group of professionals who've already been through it. They know what to do. They know what works. They know what doesn't. And when you get a sponsor, they can advise you and guide you. Hey, he did this tonight. What should I do? Don't pick him up off the floor. Let him lay on the floor. No, I feel like I should pick him up. No, don't. Don't clean up their vomit. Yeah, but if I don't, the dogs, oh, who cares if the dogs eat it? Leave it. And they will coach you on how to get them well. Now, again, not trying to fix, manage, and control them, but first of all, help you survive, but also help you make the right moves that you're creating that environment. I want to repeat that again. They're not going to change until that environment of using becomes so unbearable or impossible that they decide, oh, I'm going to get sober myself. And again, you'll take resentment out of that too, because you'd be like, I've been working on you for 50 years to get sober. And it's like, nah. Addicts and alcoholics have that iron will. They're not going to do it until they want to do it. And it has to get bad enough for them to want to do it. So Al-Anon meetings are everywhere. All you got to do is look up Al-Anon in your local jurisdiction. They have alanon.org, A-L-A-N-O-N, alanon.org. And you can find meetings everywhere, online, whatever you want. Go on YouTube, start watching videos, look up Al-Anon speakers. They will tell their stories, just like my good friend who was smoking a bug. They're funny. We do crazy stuff. But again, it's all the disease. The disease is driving the bus for the whole dysfunctional system. And the children are afflicted. My God, the amount of neglect that the children go through while the partner of the person afflicted is focused on them. I am worried they're going to lose their job and come home drunk and maybe drive drunk. I'm thinking about this. I'm obsessed with this. And meanwhile, we're not paying any attention to whether Janie's doing good in school today or whether little Timmy smoked a joint for the first time. You will miss all that. Your children will be neglected because and even you have one child who's afflicted. The amount of neglect the other children suffer is unforgivable. You're so focused on them and what they're doing and getting well. And the last catastrophe that happened, we got to get them out of jail. They just got arrested. Here's them with, you're not praising me for getting a good report card, or you didn't come to my game. Well, mommy's depressed because I'm dealing with all these problems. You see what I'm saying? We have to deal with the disease. That is the consuming force. It's the power of this illness. It's not the person. And Al-Anon, nobody else, I would wager, not even the greatest psychiatrist or counselor knows as much as that organization does. And it's free. Where else can you get that deal? And again, like we say about meetings in general, go to a lot of them. There's so many in your town, you might be astonished. We've probably got about a couple hundred here in Louisville. And if you don't like one, go to a different one. It's going to be a different group of people. It's going to have a different flavor. It's going to maybe be more your fit. People who come more from your background, who knows? But check them out. Go to different ones. Don't just go to one and say, oh, it sucked. It's like, well, that was a sucky meeting. Maybe there's a good one around the block. Please do this for yourself. Do not, I'm going to repeat this as a professional, attack this disease alone. I don't do that. I have a support group. I have fellow counselors to bounce my treatment plans and my approaches off. I have a supervisor that I can sound stuff off with. I have a higher power I work with. I have a sponsor. I have all these people around me that keep me sane when they say to me, I don't know how you do what you do, but I couldn't do it alone, I'll tell you that. And if you're going to go up against this disease alone, I say this with all my heart and soul, God bless you. God save you, because you are setting yourself up for disaster. It will drive you to the mental institution. All right. Last thing I wanted to touch on that I alluded to earlier is this possibility of getting a professional interventionist involved. Now, it sounds like an overwhelming task, and not every town is going to have one available. I'm not even sure in Louisville, if someone was to call me, I'd have to really ponder and ask around to who's doing this actively. Some people have done it in the past. Maybe they're not doing it now. But you want somebody who's got experience, right? You don't want to hire some lame brain to come in any more than you would to fix your toilet. We want somebody who's going to do it right. And so I would call your local mental health agency that's the biggest one in your town. In Louisville, southern Indiana area, we have this organization called 7 Counties. And we would call 7 counties and say, okay, I'm trying to find an interventionist, and they might not know what you're talking about. So I say, well, hook me up at the treatment center, and let me talk to an addiction counselor. And then I would go through my addiction counselors. Let me talk to Jeff. Let me talk to Mary. And somebody will know somebody, even if they're out of town. They will travel a couple of hours or whatever to come into town and do an intervention. Now, what does intervention look like? Again, we have that show. It's a great place to do a little laboratory, see what happens. But we want to get the whole family united around this goal that we are not going to tolerate the disease anymore. We're not going to attack the patient. We're not going to beat them up. We're going to offer them a chance to get help. If they choose not to, that's their decision, but there are going to be consequences from that decision instead of this same old just tolerating what they're doing. And it takes the entire family to be on board with that. The interventionist usually will work the entire first day on our plan of attack, that we are going to all do this together, and there can't be an enabler in here who's going to throw a monkey wrench at the last second and say, well, I'll take you back if you still use. No. Now, I do want to address this one aspect of this. It's just a little bit outside of the box, but I've heard some people criticize on my good people who I respect on YouTube in the field, who have said, well, if the opposite of addiction is connection, and you're withdrawing that connection from the loved one by giving them those consequences, isn't that working at cross purposes? And I'm like, that really made me stop and ponder. Is that intervention show maybe doing more harm in some way to drive them into further addiction? And first of all, I don't think anything drives them into further addiction more than just progression. They're going to use more no matter what. You can give them the best conditions ever, they're going to use more. But again, I think if you take that approach that we're not going to support you being sick, and you're still holding this over here that we are here for you. I know you don't believe it, but the second you call me and say you're ready to go to treatment, I'm there. The second you call me and say you need somebody to talk to or to get to a meeting, I'm there. I am just not going to feed you on your death march to hell. I'm just not. I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to give you the support to drive to the dope man house. None of that. I do think that's the right approach. You've got to strangle. Remember old George B. used to say, we're going to smoke them out. We're going to smoke them out. We're going to smoke them out. And that little disease is not going to come out of that damn hole until it's unbearable and impossible to be in there because I can't breathe because you're smoking me out. You get what I'm saying? You've got to make it difficult to impossible for the disease to be able to thrive and continue. And use us for questions. I am here to help you. If you have somebody in your life and you want to go through a particular scenario, don't write me a book. I'll take a couple of paragraphs because I like a little detail, but I will be happy to help you. Let me just end on this. It's heartbreaking. I mean, I watch this all the time, every day. The most painful thing in life is to have a child that's afflicted, and Dan can share on that. He has direct experience. But the devastation to my family, to me and my little boy inside from my dad's disease, and to not be angry at him and to be angry at the disease, it's hard. I know how hard that is. We're not asking you to forgive them overnight. We're not asking you to be okay with what they're doing. We're asking you to change tactics. And most people just don't understand what they're up against, which is why you need to get other people involved. Please talk to your friends, get support, but go to Al-Anon. Start watching videos on YouTube. Al-Anon speakers, codependency, enablers, family system dynamics. Those are some things you can Google, and you can find great crap to listen to. And it's not crap. So I'm really curious because I want to hear from my friend Dan, who's had to walk this journey. Again, I say I can't imagine anything worse in the entire world than either losing a child, which would be the ultimate worst, and then having a child afflicted with addiction and finding out there's not a damn thing you can do to fix them. So I'm going to rely on Dan to share a little of his personal experience here and then talk about any other aspects that he wants to talk about.
All right. Yeah, man. You've kind of, so many times I sit here and I just feel like I'm in a class, soaking up what you're laying down, and I continue to be amazed by it.
I really hope it's helpful to people. I want so much to help people with this issue.
I'm going to start off with that. The one thing and this is, and I probably, learned it from you, but the one thing that a loved one has is they had, we say we're powerless. We know we're all that, but you do have the power to create consequences from people, and also the power to not relieve their consequences. Those two things, you can actually do. And I'm really impressed when somebody does it. I had a sponsee not long ago. I guess he just celebrated 2 years, and in his first few months of sobriety, first months, early, he's at work one day, and the sheriff comes up and gives him his divorce papers, because when the wife said, if you're not gonna get better, this is over. I am not gonna allow you to be this in my life. And and I thought, way to go, gal, man, because to draw those lines in the sand and then stand on them, and she didn't just threatened to divorce him. She did. She gave him the paperwork. Now they are one solid family, and you were there. You got to hear them share. One of their sons shared the wife, and they're back together, and things are good. But it was because she held that ground, and when she said, "This is what's going to happen if you continue," and then followed up with it.
Follow through. It's all about follow
then he with that follow through. You know, I see so many times when
they
threaten to do it, and then they don't do anything. Yep. And then you can't come home. Don't come home unless if you're not sober. And then they come, and then they let them, and they just continue to allow them to bust those, walk over those boundaries. And an alcoholic will continue to do that for as long as you will let them. I mean, there's no stopping that.
And that human nature thing, though, for her to get to that point of pain and suffering, where the pain of change again, she was like, screw it. I had enough. I'm
done.
It doesn't have to get to that point. I want to assure people, you don't have to get to your wit's end before you finally do some different tactics.
Yep. Most people do. They ended up getting, so I was really impressed with, and I've seen it happen a few times, and that's what makes people change. I wasn't going to change until I got backed into a corner. I was staring at a serious prison term, and I wasn't going to change until I had something that forced my hand. I had to literally be backed into a corner, and loved ones can do that with consequences. And it's just, and I'm going to stop there with that.
Well, let me emphasize that for myself. I got sober when my parents said, we don't want you back. I literally bopped down to my counselor's office at the end of my second treatment, ready to go back home, and probably lather, rinse, repeat. Same thing I did before, get high in 2 weeks. And my counselor looks at me and says, they don't want you back. And it was like I hit a brick wall.
Yeah.
I was just like, what? My games, my schemes, my manipulation doesn't work here? He just said, there's a car waiting downstairs to take you to a halfway house. You're going, or you can walk the streets. So I was backed into the corner, man. That's the only thing that works.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that it makes you sick. And if you don't go get some help, you're going to be just what you finish with. You're defenseless. You cannot do this. And you know what? It sucks that you're ended up in this position. It does. That you're here in this position with some alcoholic or addict that's just doing what they're doing to you.
It's not fair.
But it's not fair, and it's not your fault, as you said over and over again. So I will totally agree that it effing sucks that you're having to deal with this. But here we are, and it's no different than a cancer diagnosis. What are you going to do? There you can wish it away, hope it away, pray it away, and all that. But the fact remains is this is where you're at, and and you're gonna have to go get some help with it, or you're gonna end up being just as sick as them. And that kind of bounces off the same thing as an addict, man. It's you, because with me in my addiction ended up pushing me into recovery, that now I have this way of life that just blows everything out of the water. And the same thing can happen for the loved one of the addict. If they will enter into a recovery program, it's not just going to be survival. It's going to start being to where you get this opportunity to use these tools and actually thrive in life.
You'll get back a better husband or a better wife than you ever had in your entire
relationship. And then you'll have your own tools that you'll be able to, so you'll be better personally with or without them. That's what I said. Just like I had to go do my stuff in order for me to get better, to receive this gift of recovery. And the thing is, that's your gift too. All you have to do is go do it, and it's so beautiful. And you see people that are in Al-Anon that, I say, thank God I'm an addict. Thank God I'm an alcoholic. I can actually say that. When I first walked in a room, I heard people saying that. I was like, what are you talking about? And now I understand that, because I would not have gotten these tools and this way of life without having gone there. And that can be the exact same thing for you.
Yeah, and let me emphasize that, because how many times we have our home group birthday nights, and the families will come in, and the way they share, we know they haven't worked on their stuff, because they're still mad. The guy's sober 5 years, and they're still pissed. And it's got that resentment bent to their language. And we'll say, hey, guys, this is for you. You all come in here to our meeting, and we consistently hear, this is great. Oh, this is awesome. I've never said, I feel great in here. This is awesome. And we say, well, you can have this too. Just go to Al-Anon. Try it. Get a therapist. Try it. And they won't do it. They have the stubbornness. I'm going to put this out there. I've worked with a lot of people. The codependents are as obstinate, bullheaded, and stubborn as the addicts in terms of looking at their own shit. And that's what Al-Anon excels at. If you get a loving sponsor who says, honey, it's not about them. It's about you. All this stuff is generated inside of you, regardless of what they do. Even if they go off and get well, you're going to be stuck in hell. Our real quick, the wife of Bill Wilson reached her apex at 5 years of his sobriety, and she threw her shoe at his head and said, fuck you. I'm sure she cursed and said, I've had enough. You're happy. And you're better, and I feel exactly the way I
sick.
did when you first went to the hospital.
Yep. So, yeah, whether you have to go get some help if you've been afflicted
She
with
started
this.
Al-Anon. Thank God for Lois Wells, and what a brave, trailblazing, pioneering warrior of a woman. Holy crap, the gift she gave the world.
So I'll go into some territory that I'm not terribly comfortable talking about, but I know that getting it out is valuable. And, at 8 years sober, my daughter come to me and she was hooked on fentanyl. And, and I was really glad that she came to me, all that. And I know that the only reason that she would come to me instead of coming to her mother with that information is because she knows I'm an addict and I've been through it. Same thing we've been talking about. You got to go to somebody who has been there, done that, and has got the T-shirts, the whole dresser full of them. And so that was great. And she got a little traction, but she fell off, and, last fall I got literally sick. I got so swept up in, and I'm sitting here with the number one sponsor in the entire world and a pretty goddamn good program myself. I'm pretty healthy, and I still got sick from being around and investing too much of my emotional energy into this addict that's not going to stop without the things we talked about. She's not going to.
Every little move she's making every single day, where's she going, what's she doing?
Yep. And I continue to watch. This is some of the territory that where I'm on to make some assumptions, but and I'm sure that if they watch this video, they're going to disagree, maybe. But I watch her mother getting sicker and sicker and sicker because she's doing just the opposite, and she's doing the screaming and the yelling and the pleading, but meanwhile gives her a place to live and do her little thing. I was over.
Well, her and her boyfriend.
Her and her boyfriend now. Yeah, it's the progression, right? It's a standard progression of somehow it's going to continue to multiply itself. It's like cells in a petri dish, man. It's just going to continue to multiply and do that until something is till they hit the wall and they can't.
Until something changes.
Yep.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
And I went, I was over there just the other day saying, hey, you want to boot them out and you want help? I'll stand here right beside you and make sure that they're out of the door. I will support you in telling them hit the road.
So you offered her the exit door out, and I think I already know what her response was.
That didn't go there. As a matter of fact, and it's kind of funny, and I will give her some props at some level on this. Last I seen, she's the one that left. So she took herself on a little vacation, which is a good thing to get away from the disease, So I see that taken care of. I see that, but it's also like surrendering the home to the addict, man. And I'm not sure
it might be on fire when you go home.
I'm not sure that was a good move, So yeah, on one hand, it's great. I was happy to see her out doing stuff. Kind of funny, she decided to go on a solo road trip. I wonder where she got that idea.
She didn't go to Gettysburg though.
Nope, she didn't go there. But and I watch it, so I have firsthand experience as a recovered dude working a really solid program. I mean, I'm sitting here doing podcasts. I'm sitting here doing stuff to help other people. I've got so many sponsees, I can't hardly deal with all of them. And I go to meetings and I participate in my recovery, and it still got me sick.
That is a great testimony. So imagine someone who doesn't have any experience.
Right. That's what I mean.
And they're beating themselves up for falling into the trap. That's rule one, folks. Let's stop that off the bat.
Yep. And you walked with me for a while too, until you picked up and showed the mirror to me. And it was like hitting me with a frying pan that bing, oh golly, I am. That's where I'm at. Until you showed me that, I couldn't see it.
That's a real good point, though, because our friends and supports can get pulled into our madness. Now, I wasn't pulled into your madness, so to speak, but I was sort of like, well, damn, he's got a daughter. I don't have a daughter. And that's got to just break his fucking heart every day. I just don't know how he would deal with that. And so I was going to tolerate. I wasn't going to let you get into trouble. That's where the line was. But I wasn't going to jump you right away because I know you're doing the best you can. But see, our friends can sometimes work against us with that you don't want people to co-sign what's not working. You want people going to say, it's not working, honey. Yeah. We need to do something different. And, God love her. She took care of herself. But her going on vacation is not going to stop her daughter's addiction.
Nope. And, I got bad enough that actually some of my friends were thinking I had reused. That's what I was apparently looking like to
your
some of the
signs,
people,
your
right?
visible symptoms.
My visible symptoms. There was a few of my closest friends were conspiring about has Dan relapsed? That's how bad it made me look. That's how it invaded me. I got taken hostage.
Saying, what's wrong with Dan? And I was like, he's got a daughter on fentanyl. What the fuck do you think is wrong with him? You know, they were trying to be helpful.
Yeah, I know all these people were trying to be helpful. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is the effect that it had on me was that detrimental. And it did. And once I saw it and was able to, once you helped me identify it and I was able to confront it and start taking some actions to get the hell out of that, I got well real quick. I got back to me real quick, and it's still not easy. I mean, I've given her money lately. It's hard to say no to your little girl. I'm better about it, but I still fall prey.
Well, let's talk about
but I don't beat myself up over it.
To be detailed about that, though, because especially if they have a child, the person afflicted, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy you groceries and give you groceries. I think that's different than giving them money that will keep them sick to get dope.
Well, I gave her money.
Yeah, okay. But what about what might work, right? And so let's say you and your ex get on the same page and you're like, all right, we're going to kick her out. The natural thing is then this flood of fears. Oh, she'll be homeless, or she might get hurt, or she's going to trick her body for dope now because she doesn't have money and resources and all that stuff. First of all, that's going to happen as a natural part of the disease process. Everybody falls into the same traps. We say there is no terminal uniqueness in the program.
You can't control it.
You can't. They're going to do what they're going to do, period, whether you kick them out or don't kick them out. All you're doing, though, is making it more difficult, which puts their consequences in their face. Yeah. Because now they can't just easily come home and crash at your place. And so, but I want to point that out, that you're going to have those natural fears, and that's why you need your supports. Yeah. Oh, am I doing the right thing? I don't know, man. What if they die? It's my fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're doing the thing to save their life. Yep. What they do with that, you can't control. They're a completely independent person.
And as you said earlier, it's her journey. What is it my business to start inserting myself into that?
It might have been Scott Lee, whose daughter was afflicted with his addiction, that I learned it from. I did not get it in my training. But they were like, look, you're 100% powerless over your own disease. You can't fix yourself, right? All right, now you're 1,000-fold powerless over someone else's. And that has served me better as a counselor and as a sponsor almost than anything else. Yeah. And all I can do is share my experience, strength, and hope and support them and tell them I love you. You're going to do what you're going to do. Yep. And I let go of that. You said about results. I totally let go of results. Well, whatever happens is that's off my plate. I did the best I could, but you're a free-willed person. You get to decide for yourself which way you want to go here. Yep. I have to do that with my patients every day. I want them so desperately to go to a meeting and get that juice. Nope, they're not going. Okay. Have a good year. Everybody's great. Have a good day. See you tomorrow. I have to respect their decision. Yep. I can't control them. Yep. But boy, if you're a therapist out there, you watch that. Don't get sucked in. You got to know your place. I have a place. I can't cross that line. That's their decision to accept help or not accept help. Yep. And you have done a lot of benefit. Let's be honest. You introduced her to the program, which gave her friends. And she still contacts and talks to her sponsor, I think you told me, and people that are connected with the program. Plus, she has watched this and been participating in that. So she's getting the information to know there's another way. Yep. And sometimes that's a great way to lay seeds for change. I can't lead a horse to water and make them drink, but I can feed them a lot of potato chips. That's kind of what you've done, which I think is working. Yep. And, her sponsor's been... She knows there's a better way. She's just young. Yep. It's hard when you're young. Yep. I say over and over, there's no way I could have, I could not have confronted this disease at 18, and it had hold of me well by then. Mm. But I thought somehow or another I was going to make it. When you first came into the program, you thought, oh, this problem's just happened when I got my court case. Yeah. We didn't realize the disease had been with us all this time. Yeah. I was that way. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think personal experience is our greatest teacher in this program. And Thank you for that.
Yep. That's just as an aside. When I work with guys in the big book, I take a lot of the pages and the writing in there and I turn it to first person and I read it from my perspective, because that they and them that's out there somewhere is pretty loose. I can't get hold of that. But when a man is sitting right beside me going, I have had great spiritual experiences that revolutionized my whole entire life. It's a little different than we have had that have, all that third person
There's another
writing.
angle I do in it, maybe you do too, but I love how effective it is. The couple of sections, but particularly the one where it talks about the actor and the show doesn't go well. And I'll say, so what does Joe do? Joe tries harder. And,
use their name.
And I'll use their name. They're like, hey, okay, I've done that.
It does. It lands. It's more personal, It definitely is. It's the one area that you can sneak in them use, and you got to make it funny too. Keep it light, and keep it humorous.
Definitely. Joe becomes even more resentful and tries harder. Well, look.
Feel for everybody out there dealing with it.
Yeah, and we're talking about an extremely complicated, complex illness. I've been told by the top scientists in the country that in my trainings, and I'm telling you, these are people on the Presidential Council. They're at top of the field running organizations, doing the latest research, and they're saying we have one of the most complicated, complex illnesses, if not the most complicated illness. Cancer cannot hold a candle to all the different aspects of us when we're sick and what we have to address to try and get a patient well. So that's not your fault. It's not your job. I can't fix it. I didn't cause it. I can't control it, and I cannot cure it.
I wrote that down.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but you'll hear that a lot at Al-Anon if you go. I do want to end with one story that will just warm your heart, and it may bring tears to my eyes because it was so touching for me. This program provides opportunities for little miracles that happen where everything just lines up and you're like, now how did that happen? That's really interesting. So I was on vacation in Hawaii with my sister because she was working there. So I got a free first class trip because of her business account points and stuff she had earned. And we were having a great time on top of Mount Kilauea and just touring the island, doing all the jazz. And I found out there was the Big Island Bash, which is their annual AA convention, was that weekend when we were there. And I said, we got to go, man. That's a sign, man. I got to get some of that juice. What are the chances you go on vacation to a place and that's when they have their yearly convention? And plus, I'm in Hawaii, for God's sakes. I want to get a little bit of Hawaiian juice. And so this guy who spoke, he actually was from my backyard. He was from Atlanta. And he knew my sponsor, Burns Brady. And I was like, I said, some more signs. I better pay attention. And he's telling this story. He says, so I had this wife, see, and he's just being real serious. He goes, and, she wasn't taking my crap at a certain point, and she got involved with those Al-Anon people, Al-Anon people. And she decided to go to those meetings, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm in my chair every night. And I got my scotch or my whiskey, whatever he's drinking. And she would say, I'd say, where's my dinner? And she'd say, I don't know, honey. I'm going to my meeting. I'll be back later. See ya. And she'd go out the door, click. And he'd just sit there and stew all night. Next night, where's my dinner? I don't know, honey. I'm going to my meeting. See you later. Click. And she goes out the door. Did that for 5 years as he sat there growing a stump, stewing in that chair, growing roots with his whiskey. And he just mad. And then he changes his tone and he asks her to stand up. And he starts crying. This big burly ass man. And says, this woman saved my life because she was brave enough to get out first, to pull me out of the madness. And you out there don't realize how your actions are going to change for yourself and create that road for someone to find their own way out. We encourage people to do that all the time. Get sober, show them the example that there's a better way, and they may find their way. But that emotional moment, and everybody in the room, we're talking thousands of people, gave her applause, and she was embarrassed. But if you go to the lengths to marry somebody and decide you want to spend the rest of your life with that person, that's the kind of bond you want. A soulmate who saves your life because they were brave enough to look out for themselves and say, I am not going to tolerate this crap. I want out. I've done that in my family. And after that, I don't want to say it was directly responsible, but I do think it was an influence. My sister started going to Al-Anon. And she had been in abusive relationships before, and she got out. She doesn't tolerate that anymore. She's way better, and she's happier. And she's got a great sponsor and good friends. And I don't know, man. Just like this disease is addictive and can spread, so can recovery.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
So I want to end with that on a positive note, and I hope you can find your way to take care of yourself first. That was number one rule of the day. Take care of me. I'll deal with your shit later. That's it. Okay? Survival. All right. So thank you for being with us during that portion. We had a little discussion on it, which was great. Now we're going to switch to our question and answer period, where we like to have your questions and get into whatever you want to talk about. So let's get right to it today. First one's a short one, but a goodie. Oldie, but a goodie. How many times do you take a sponsee back? So a sponsee means you're a sponsor to them, and that's the new person or person that wants to go through the steps again. How many times do you take a sponsee back after a relapse? And to what extent are we, quote unquote, obligated to take a 12-step call, and where do we draw the line? Great question. Really good. So relapse is part of recovery. This is actually one of the hardest lessons for therapists to learn, because you will put a lot of time and investment into your clients and want the best for them, and then all of a sudden everything goes off the rails, so it looks like, because they had a relapse or whatever. And sometimes relapses are the best teacher. Now you got to be careful about telling clients that, because they'll be like, oh, I need to go use it, and that will help me. But again, pain and suffering is our master. That's the one we obey. We don't really take suggestions. We obey pain. And so if it's part of the process, we got to weigh that value between, am I being of use to them as a sponsor? Are they making any real progress? Is that relapse serving a purpose to help us get back engaged in the work and keep them on track going forward? Or are they falling into a cycle where we need to have professional intervention and suggest going to a treatment center? And that, to me, is always the best barometer about how serious someone is, when they keep telling you, no, I'm serious, take me back, I want to go through it. Really? You want to go to detox? Well, I don't know about that. Yeah, because you're still on a drink and you want to bullshit me, right? Now, to be an effective sponsor, and it took me so many years to learn this, and I probably will have a whole seminar class on this in here, because it's one of the most difficult journeys to be an effective, a good sponsor. And I had great sponsors teach me, and I didn't know jack shit about it till I was 18 years sober. So I wasn't doing it wrong, but I wasn't doing it the most effectively. And Bill Wilson put some very solid guideposts in the big book, one of which is on page 96, where he says if you have a person who's not serious and they're not doing the work, they are taking up a seat that is denying another alcoholic the chance to live and to be happy. Those are very interesting lines as a writer, to live and be happy. But the live part, that this person is being self-centered and they're not serious and they're only bullshitting to get their paper signed or get out of their court trouble or get back in the big bed with wife, and they're not doing the work, then they are preventing another person from saving their life who could have that seat. But I'm so astonished how many people will hold on to a sponsee that maybe isn't ready yet, and they're not taking on the person right next to them who might be dying right before their eyes at the meeting. You don't even see it because you're focused on that guy who should be doing his work. Well, maybe he doesn't want to do his work. He's not ready. And there's a guy who's ready. Number 2, I have to receive something back in return. Yes, this is a service work program. I do it without expectation of return. But as a sponsor, I need juice. I am an alcoholic. Without juice, I die. I'm a flower. Without rain, I die. And without that juice to show me there's some God that exists, there's some purpose, there's some actual real, more than this world out there. And the only time I see that is when my sponsee's lights come on. When my sponsee does the work and he gets better and he has great things happen in his life, and suddenly I'm like, it works. And I already know it works, but I get reinvigorated and I get rejuiced up. And then I'm excited. Then he gets excited. And we're on that journey having a great damn time of repairing and moving forward and having all this great shit happen in his life, right? But a guy who's not doing the work, I become his fire chief, is the way it was explained to me. He's calling me to put his tail feathers out. Oh, really? Yeah, another wreck? Oh, poor baby. Oh, really? You got arrested again? Oh, yeah. And I'll sit there, 2 hours on the phone and listen to him. No, we're not going to do that. You are draining my serenity. And I had one of my keen teachers tell one of his, or I guess it was his sponsor, told him this. Said, look, you're calling me all the time bitching about this guy, and I'm telling you to fire him. I would rather have you on the golf course than being his fire chief and him stealing your serenity because it's affecting your sobriety. We are only human. We're not expected to be superhuman as sponsors. So I have feelings, and I also have my serenity I need to attend to. And if you are not giving me juice, and you are costing me my attention and my energy because you won't do the work and you keep relapsing, and you wonder why you're relapsing because you're not doing the work, see the cycle? We're not getting anywhere, kiddo, and we need to change this. And, maybe one of the honest things is in all humility to say, maybe I'm not the right sponsor for you. Maybe you need a better fit. As one of the greatest answers you could have is, it's just not working. Maybe I can help you get somebody else. And I'm more than happy to help them find another person to work with. I will only keep somebody if they make the case to me that they really, through their actions, will show me they're going to do the work differently. They've got a renewed commitment. And I'll just be real honest with you. They don't even have to tell me this. I can smell fear. And I can smell desperation on a newcomer. I can see it coming in the door, whether they're ready or not. Now, I know that sounds tricky. Well, who do you think you are? I'm just telling you, I've been around a long time. I called it the other day with one of our friends. I said, well, I don't think they're done yet. And Dan's like, I never considered that. Not that he would have, but it's just like, I don't know, man. His energy was off the other day when I saw him. I said, I just don't think he's ready. And sure enough, they're still drinking. So if it's costing you your serenity and your sponsor, and you should be in touch with your sponsor about how it's going with your sponsee, and your sponsor's like, dude, I'm worried about you. You're spending too much time on this one guy like it's a pet project. I joked with Dan about that recently. I was like, I think he's a pet project of yours. You want to see if you can get him to get sober against his will almost. It's not really serving any purpose. And I've got this other person right over here that God maybe wants me to work with. Maybe I'm supposed to help save them. Why am I wasting time on this individual? It's another section in the big book. I'll go big book on you if you want to argue this with me. To the employers, you may have to discharge him if he is not serious. Pretty clear, isn't it? And yet you'll get people say, I don't believe in firing my sponsee. Oh, really? And when I fire them, it doesn't mean I don't support them. It doesn't mean I won't talk to them. It doesn't mean I'm not there to be a support to them or help them if they need some help with something. It just means I'm not taking you through the work because you're not doing the work, which to me is the number one definition of a sponsor. There's a lot of people out there calling themselves sponsors, and they are not taking their sponsee through the 12 steps, and it's criminal. They are not doing for them what was done for them by somebody else, which is what we're supposed to do, is pass it on. I am supposed to give you what I was given. And if you're not doing that, you're just being their emotional support animal. That's all you are. Oh, it's okay. I'll give you a ride to the meeting tonight. Well, great. You're doing good service, but you're not a sponsor. Don't call yourself that. Sponsor teaches you how and takes you through the 12 steps. It's been that way since the dawn of the 12 steps. They didn't have those right away. They also did not have sponsors right away. Sponsors, they used to be called pigeons, and I'm your mentor, and you're my protege. But now it's sponsored because I'm going to sponsor you through the steps. So I know you probably have some thoughts on this, Dan. I'll let you chime in here. But if they are not doing the work and they continue to relapse, first of all, look into professional intervention. They will resist it. But sometimes the disease has them so corrupted that you've got to go in for treatment to get unplugged and get a chance to be sober a little bit. Otherwise, they may not break that cycle. And you're going to lose them anyway. That's another thing. I think sponsees get into ego and they feel too all-powerful, like somehow I'm going to figure this out. No, defer to other people. As therapists, we're taught to refer out. When you're outside your wheelhouse and it's not working, refer out. Let them work with somebody else. So I'll shut up, but I'm passionate about this topic because I was not an effective sponsor until I learned how to let people go. And I only work with people who are serious.
Yep. And I was taught that too, and it's I'm a really good sponsor. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that you're getting ready to lose me, and you may not find another guy like me. I know what I'm doing here, and I got a track record to prove it. And you're giving that up. Are you sure you want to give that up?
How many fifth steps have you done?
Over 30.
Mm-hmm. For your age in sobriety, that's a fantastic success record.
And use the term, you got to earn your sponsorship bones. And that's just part of it right there too. You have to earn that to, and you'll know it. You'll know it. And like you said, stay in contact with your sponsor. But there are times, as you said, that if somebody, I have a personal 3 strikes and we're done rule personally. If you're going to relapse 3 times and it ain't because I don't like you, it's because this is not working. That's why I need to get you elsewhere. And if that might be out in the world to get you more consequences when you're ready, or that might be to the next guy down the seat from me. That might be the guy you listen to. I've watched that happen too. I've turned a guy loose and said, frankly, he wasn't allowing me to sponsor him is really what was happening. He wasn't taking my suggestions and wasn't doing that stuff, and I turned him loose, and he went back out and got a little more pain before he came back, but he came back to another guy, and now he's a couple years sober. And so sometimes that line in the big book about discharging them, I really don't have much trouble with that. And, I did have a little fun with that one guy, and it was a little bit fun. I wondered if, I don't know. I did. I thought I could turn him. I thought I could get him listening. And I couldn't.
Because it's like trying to turn a gay person straight or something.
Yeah. But so many times,
they're just not ready.
Yeah. But there's that sponsorship bones thing too, where you get into this thing where, a lot of guys are resistant to me for a little while, and they will turn a corner. I got a guy right now, that was resistant, and after a little bit, it took some doing, it took some persistence, but he did turn the corner, and he's doing better now. There was a part B to that question too. Obligation to go on 12-step call.
Oh, and to what extent are we obligated to take a 12-step call? Yeah, you take that first. Now I'll jump on if I got anything.
I don't, I know, and it's kind of, this goes back to this other question. We tell, I know I need to sponsor guys to stay sober, right? That's part of what I got to do. I got to give this away to keep it. And, if this guy's my only guy I happen to have, maybe I'll stay along with him a little bit longer. But flip, same thing as in a 12-step call. I know that's something that needs to be, I need to be available for that. But like when you get in the big book and it talks about a guy might burn your mattress and might, you had to do all this stuff, and you told me not anymore. If it's going to interfere with my life, there's a level, there's a place, and it's another spot. Earn your bones where that level. Maybe if you're just brand new sober, maybe you're shooting off and going and helping somebody pretty quick. There's a level of interruption that I'm allowed to be in my life today. And I do plenty of 12-step work, but, I watched not too long ago, 2 guys went off and went to the bar to get a guy out of the bar. Now, I'm not doing that. No, I am not walking in the bar and telling him to come with me.
We're not temperance fanatics. That's what temperance fanatics would do. But, it's also that measurement of against the reward of, is it worth it? Are they going to are they serious? They need help.
And juice worth the squeeze.
We want you to take someone else along anyway.
Yeah.
So then when you call that other objective person, they can kind of tell you, well, I know this guy, and I think he just wants a ride to the liquor store. Because I had one addict, my boys did that. He picked up this guy who spilled his gin all over the car. So now my guy's car smells like alcohol, so he gets pulled over. He's screwed. And then he says, thanks for the ride, man. And instead of heading in the healing place, he walked down to the liquor store there. And then I had a sponsee this past week. Took a guy to get help, thought he was taking him to get help, but no, he was just giving him a ride to another neighborhood, and the guy left a bag of dope in the front seat of his car. Now, this fellow has current charges that have resurfaced, where he's facing felony charges, and he said, holy crap, can you imagine if I had been pulled over with an open felony case with dope in my car? What are the chances I'm going to beat this stupid felony from the past? They're going to think I'm still using. And the guy had no care or concern for my friend's welfare.
Yep.
No, we are not martyrs. Do not be a codependent, save the world, ignorant. And again, make mistakes. You got to earn your bones with this. But the other thing Bill says in the big book about taking people into your home and shit, no, you don't do that anymore. We have treatment centers. We have halfway houses. We have other options they did not have back then. That is why he did that.
Yep.
But for those that don't know, Lois, his wife, comes home one day and finds a drunk dead in the stove. The son of a bitch gassed himself.
Yep.
Can you imagine putting your wife through that? Well, I'm trying to stay sober, and so she stood by her man. But no, that is crazy crap that should not happen today.
Yep.
It's not necessary.
And when I was in early recovery, I gave some consideration to having some guy that was homeless come and stay with me. And thank God I talked to my sponsor and realized that I have kids here and stuff like that. And that's probably not a great idea. And there's other places for this to go. And also, you're inserting yourself into their journey again. And here, we don't have Superman capes, man. We got a lot of power to help people who want to be helped, but I don't have the power to go out there and just save people.
My job is to facilitate getting to the help or getting to the meeting, whatever, but not to take on their life. Like it's my job to fix them. And that's a really tricky line.
It is tricky.
Especially when you're a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
You're still not in charge of fixing them. Mm-mm. Your job is to share your experience, strength, and hope. That's it.
You more or less assist in a self-rescue because they got to want to be rescued, and you can assist them.
I can't say this enough. Take a partner, take a partner, take a partner.
Yeah, don't ever do it by
Everybody
yourself.
I've heard that screwed up did not take somebody with them.
Yep.
We do this in pairs. That's the tradition.
Yep.
Don't be bigger than the rules. I don't care how much sobriety I got. I don't go on a 12-step call alone. You and Travis went to save Charlie.
Yep.
When he wanted to get some White Claws.
I made sure somebody was going to come with me.
I'm not so sure being alone would have been good, getting those White Claws in your car. But,
I needed a partner, man.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, Travis and I ended up getting locked in the goddamn while in the damn brook without our telephones or nothing for hours waiting for them to assess Charlie. If I hadn't had somebody to sit there,
I would have warned you about that trap. I would have been like, they're going to take your shit. You'll be stuck in there. Get out of there.
Yeah, next time, man, I'm shoving them in the door. You're on your own.
Earned your bones. You learned that part.
Yeah. But thank God I had somebody with me to sit there and talk to.
Yeah.
Because here we was, me and Travis, and her joking around and waiting until we found out that he had been admitted and we could go.
And so one last thing, too, on that 12-step. Don't get caught up in what they do with the gift. That's another thing. My sponsors get all burned up. Well, they didn't go to the store. Well, look, that doesn't take away from what you did. You still put forth a good deed for a fellow human being, and that goes in your good karma section regardless of what they did.
Yeah.
I had a homeless dude that he's an artist, and I know him through the art gallery I was working in, and he's always been homeless. He's well known in town. He's a huge black guy, and he sits on the street corner and just draws all day. He's crazy. He's out of his mind, but he's very good at his art. And I ran into him one time. He had no shoes on. I said, "What's going on, bro?" And he said, "Oh, no, I lost my shoes, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Dude, I will help you. Let's go get some shoes." He could barely fit into my Acura. And the dude's like crawling in there, stumbling in. And then he's like trying to spit out the window, and it's all going down the side of my car. And I'm like, "All right, I love you. Don't worry about it. I can clean it up. We're getting you some shoes." We go to Foot Locker. We need size 16 or some shit. They don't even have it. But okay, give me the biggest size you got. Let's see if it works. We got his shoes. Everything's all good. We got his new shoes. I took him where he wanted to go. I felt good. He felt good. Did my deed of the day. Next time I ran into him, I said, "So how's it going?" He didn't have shoes again. Mm-hmm. I said, "What happened?" "Oh, he went to sleep at the VOA shelter and somebody stole his shoes that night." Holy crap. But again, it does not negate what you did. You still did something good for another human being. Don't get caught up in what happens after.
Yep, no doubt.
So, yeah, obligated. I'm not a fan of obligated. That just makes me feel resentful.
Yep.
If
I am not obligated.
You're telling me I have to do something, I'm probably going to be like, "No, I don't," because that's the way I've always been. But having the I get to help somebody else if I feel in a place where I can do this. Don't ever give out of obligation or out of resentment that you're angry that you're doing it. It will take all the gift away from it. So, great question, though. And again, it's just something we practice at. No perfection required. All right, here we go. This one's very complicated. Not really, but it's tight. It's dicey. So hang on to your hats. So, I need some advice to give to my daughter to pass on to her best friend, which I call my bonus daughter, because she is always here and spending the night. Hell, she even has her own room in my house. That's awesome. The other day, the girl's mom calls and asks her daughter to get her dad's phone to send her a picture that she needed for her work in Texas. All right, so we're getting the daughter to get her dad's phone because she needs to have this picture for work for some reason. So she has her dad's phone, and she's looking for this picture, and a text came through from another woman talking about what they were going to do later. Well, after that, she started looking into it, and sure enough, this man has been having an affair for over a year with this other woman. The girl even saw stuff he was saying about her, about the daughter, and other things a 14-year-old girl shouldn't have to. Oh, saying about the girlfriend. Okay, so the girl even saw stuff he was saying about the girlfriend and other things a 14-year-old girl shouldn't have to see. Whew. So my question is, what can I tell my daughter to pass on to her so that she doesn't have to carry the guilt of this knowledge for the rest of her life? She hasn't said anything to anyone but my daughter. Thanks for any input at all. I love the podcast. Wow. All right. So we always say on the podcast, protect the children, protect the children, protect the children. So we have to go into protection mode as you as a parent, you as her friend, a guardian when she's staying at your house. So we got to make sure that we're acting in her best interest and not worry about what the dad or the mom is doing. And you definitely don't want to get caught in that triangle. That's a deadly triangle, to get caught in somebody else's love affairs of life and craziness. Now, the problem is we're building a secret here. And I'm telling you, this is the number one damage that I experienced and that I see done to children in alcoholic dysfunctional family systems is the lies and secrets, the lies and secrets, the lies and secrets. And then they co-opt you into that mess and say, okay, now you have to keep this secret because nobody must know and all that crap. And so now she has to actively keep alive from her mother. And that is not a good position for her relationship with her mother, because she will feel guilty and she will feel naturally shameful. And to be honest with you, children are just naturally inclined to tell the truth. And you're telling her to go against her own values. Now, at 14, she's a little not as young, but still, that's going against her nature. That's like, why am I keeping this secret? It's not, blah, blah, blah. Plus, it's hurting my mom, and she doesn't know. So you're putting your daughter in all loads of conflict. Now, again, I said don't get involved in the middle of all this, but it's almost like if you did know the father, I just wonder if approaching him and saying, hey, man, you should really, your daughter's carrying this all by herself, and that's going to hurt her. Now, let's back up. I'm not so sure that's the right approach, but it is an angle.
It's a tough one, man.
I don't know if the daughter should tell the mom. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I know that having that daughter hold that secret is definitely going to make her sick, period. And probably the only way for her to not have that happen is for her to get honest. And I think it would have to be with her mom or her dad, one of the two. You say, I don't know. One piece of me's going, Dad, I found this out, and you need to tell Mom, or I'm going to. That's tough cookies there, man. I'm just talking out loud. I don't know that. Or just straight up go to Mom and say, Mom, I found this on Dad's telephone. But I almost think she has to, and that really sucks. It's kind of like this thing we're talking about earlier when you end up being in this family system thing where you end up in having an addict or alcoholic as a loved one. It sucks.
He's put her in a no-win situation.
Yes, he's put her in a no-win situation.
She's either going to be perceived to have betrayed him
or
she's
her.
either going to betray her. So
with their bullshit.
As you were talking, which is great, because this is where the miracles happen in our program, is getting somebody else to get involved. My brain clicked into gear, because at first I was like, I was thinking too much about it. And
you got to wait for the second beat. It's going now, though.
But when it clicked into gear, it's that line from the big book blared out in my head. The principles are our guides to progress. The principles are our guides to progress. Whenever you have a problem in your life in recovery, you defer to if your course of action and your choices of what you're going to do aligns with the principles of the program. So our number one principle of the program is honesty. We do not keep secrets. So there's one. Another principle of the program is not being caught up in somebody else's stuff, but being true to yourself. Now, she's too young for this. I'm talking above her pay grade. But again, keeping a secret for someone, it goes against your values. You're not being true to yourself. You're not being authentic. You're dishonoring your own truth. So because of the damage I think that would be done to her for holding the secret, I think she's got to be honest with one of them. And frankly, I think it's the mother who deserves to know, in my opinion. What do you think?
It's a tough one, man. I was actually listening. This rings a bell. I was listening to this. I can't remember what her name was, Tara something, and she was who I really clicked onto before the retreat about the trauma and the different stuff and this is the wounds. And this is exactly, this situation right here was talked about in that. Now the woman is grown now. See, it's after the fact. She's 20 years after the affair, and she held on to her dad's secret all that time, and she is effed up over it. It's her major wound. And so like, boom, I mean, it's the exact same thing. She found out about her dad's affair, and her dad told her to keep quiet, and because she actually went to her dad and said something, and dad made her stay quiet. So yeah, man, I think the safest place, she's going to be wounded one way or the other. Mm-hmm. I was sitting here thinking that probably the better thing to do, I would like to know like what kind of relationship she would have with them and that kind of thing. But I think I think as the daughter, you'd be better off telling the mom.
Yeah. Now, so what it's saying in this is that it's not like the father has said, "Don't say anything."
Yeah, that's not there.
So no, it says all it says here is she hasn't said anything.
Yeah. So there's a little difference in between that deal, but she kept that secret, and it was never spoke about again.
Mm-hmm.
Golly, man.
But that's where I love our experience, strength, and hope, because if the principles are our guides to progress and honesty is our number one principle, then I would turn that back on myself and say, okay, if I was holding a secret for an addict that was hurting someone else, I would be obligated to tell the truth, because I don't carry secrets for other people. I don't carry secrets in my own life. I'm not going to let your sickness infect me. And that's what's happening. She's being co-opted into his life.
Yeah, exactly.
She's being co-opted into his sickness.
Yep.
And
I feel like
if she doesn't tell the mother, she will regret that, because there's that loyalty that,
that's what I was going to say.
I'm your daughter,
yep.
and I kept a lie from you, right?
Yep. I kind of think that would be I think the mom would probably be the safest bet.
And then whatever she does with it is her business. That's not the daughter's fault.
Yep. And, maybe mom can not let, now we're really digging, but I mean, it would be beneficial if mom didn't let dad know it's a daughter that told.
Right. If she could say, I found your phone.
Found out on my own.
Maybe she could.
And maybe this advice could be given that way hey, look, you say you fell, don't tell him I told you. Now, I know that's starting to be another secret kind of thing, but I think that's a safe secret. I think that's a safe secret.
That is a protective secret. Look, we have a belief in the program that when you're telling little white lies to protect your recovery, God understands that's not a lie to be selfish or get one over on anybody or steal or lie or cheat. That's just a lie I had to say that just so I didn't get drunk. And so for her, saying that is to protect her safety. I think that's valuable.
Yeah, me too.
I also think that if she doesn't tell her mom, she may regret that really seriously the rest of her life.
Yep. And it could be both ways. If mom finds out she knows
I can hear
and
people
didn't,
out there saying,
my daughter didn't.
In my head, screw that guy. He fucked up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's really where it's at.
But isn't it interesting? And this is going to happen to a lot of people out there. We were talking about this topic today of dealing with an addict. You get sucked into their sickness.
Yeah.
And then you begin questioning, I thought I knew what the right thing was to do, but they have me all confused now. Yeah. And I'm telling you, they will get in your head and they will manipulate you to a way where you don't know up from down. Yeah. You don't know left from right.
That's
and
interesting.
You will do things you never thought you would do.
And it's also got the tech twist.
Very good. It does. The cell phone. See, cell phones are evil. You got caught. How many people get caught, man? I'm telling you, I see that on the news and crime stories all the time.
All the time.
Well, the cell phone pinged them at the point of the crime, or they took their cell phone with them and took a picture. What an idiot.
Yeah.
So this person, first of all, God bless you for being a role model for this person. And really in this role, that is exactly where you're being asked to step up. I think higher power is putting you in a position to show her a good man. That a man doesn't lie. A man doesn't be shady about a relationship or something. And so advising her and saying, hey, we have this program we work, be honest with her. And, it's a spiritual program about, what's the right thing to do. And, and God's watching us, right? And so I'm trying to be honest. Because if I keep a lie, that's not being close to God. That's not following principles. And so my experience, since I'm older than you, is that if you don't tell your mom, this is really going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Now, maybe there's a way to tell your mom. I'm just talking this through like you were, where you can let her tell her husband, I found your phone, and don't implicate me. There's no reason the child should even be involved in any way in this. But I wouldn't keep the lie. I'll just say that for myself. I would not keep the lie.
No.
Now, let's rephrase that. if it's not on my side of the street and I observe something from somebody else's life, I'm not going to run over to their side of the street and run their life. No.
Right.
But if you're going to co-opt me and bring me into your life, buddy, I'm working my program even if you aren't.
Yeah. And I could see, certain situations where if I found out something about one of my buddies' wives was cheating on them and I knew it, I'm not keeping that secret from my friend.
Right. Right. You're not. I don't consider that being a true friend if you don't.
Right. Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. I need to make sure they know what's going on.
If it's a question of loyalty, then I think the mother deserves the loyalty because she's not the one that did
she's
anything
not the
wrong.
one doing the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you know what I love about this whole process is that I know this about myself, and it's helped me stay sober. Left to my own devices between doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, I'm probably going to do the wrong thing because it's easier and I'm lazy and I just want to feel good, right? So this program makes me a better man because I can go and talk to my friends and I can get this advice and I can say, oh, yeah, I can see it. That's the right path. And I can actually do that path knowing that I'm aligning myself with the principles which will add to causing good things to happen in my life. And that is being recovered. Okay? That is not sobriety. There's so many people out there, and you guys are doing old behaviors of what you used to do when you were high and drunk.
You're just not drinking.
You're just not using. And boy, do we see that unmanageability and that miserable. They're not happy. They're pissed off. And, I don't want any of that. I've worked too hard to get where I am. I am not a saint. Furthest thing from it. But I'm also a good dude today. God can count on me that if I'm tapped on the shoulder, I'm going to show up. Yeah. And I'm going to do the right thing.
And standing here now with the man asking the question, I guess I'm assuming it sounds like it was a guy.
Yeah, it's a father. He said that.
Yeah, okay, I thought it was. Is asking the question, and then me and you are sitting here talking about it. I think this is also the group conscience kind of thing going on in our lives, where when we got this, I think that's the answer. I believe in it. That because we've sit here and my higher power and your higher power are going to give us the right advice, and it may take me and you dialoguing to get there. And it's the awesome thing about how that happens, about when you dialogue with somebody and that magic happens, that the answer pops out. But I feel real confident that's the direction that it should go. And you probably know who that is. And the lag time on this podcast, probably shouldn't wait to give him that advice until this episode airs.
Really good point. I will do that. Really good point. But that's what makes AA work and why it's still around. We have this dynamic called the God consciousness, that you're going to bring all these different personalities together, and Alcoholics and Addicts are fanatical about what they believe in their egos. And how are we all agreeing? They'll call us anarchists. Like the fact that all these anarchists can freaking work together and keep this thing from blowing up. The only thing that does it is we get together as a group, we talk it out, everybody has a voice. Sometimes it gets a little crazy and hairy, but eventually the truth arises about what the right path is forward. And that God consciousness can occur between two people who are healthy. So, Lord, join us. What a gift to be able to know and not spend weeks wondering, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Yeah. Let me write Dear Abby.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy advice.
Meanwhile, you're sitting around wondering what to do, and the bomb goes off.
Too late. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So really great questions. I appreciate y'all so much for sending those in, and please keep them coming. We need to help people. We need to hear from you. Again, our email address is iam12recovery@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say, hi, I like the podcast. Just on an ending note, I hope you'll stay with us. Please help us spread the word on this. I always wait till the end to say this. Who knows if anybody's still watching at the end? Maybe I need to say it more at the beginning. But we cannot get our analytics up. I know it's the old like, subscribe, comment shit. But seriously, we need your support so that we can get our image, what do you say, our exposure up higher so other people can find us while they're scrolling through. Because we're going to be buried in a massive YouTube library, and nobody's going to be able to find us if we don't have your support. So please do what you can. Like, subscribe, comment, etc. Plus, we love to hear from you. You know, it's hard to look at the comments and not see anybody say anything.
Yeah.
But you can see it's been seen by 100 people.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys. You can't put hello and on there. You know, we're just guys. We want to hear from you. Come on now. Anyway, thanks for being with us, and we're going to keep on plugging. We're here to help as many people as we can, and we want you to join us. Come join us. So my friend Travis says, join us. All right, we like to close like we do at my treatment group every day. So let's do the serenity prayer. Let's go. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Woohoo! Thanks for being here. We love you dearly.
I just want the frames. We can smile for a minute. Put my arm around you for a minute. And that gives me plenty of ammo.
Around you for a minute.
That gives
Give
me
it a little
lots of
peace
ammo,
sign.
man.
Little thumbs up sign.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Good thinking.